I just got one of these CD-ROM things for my computer. Have you tried these things? These things are great. Let me show you. I want to do a program on the history of industrial music. So all I have to do is take this multimedia encyclopedia that I have on CD and put it in the machine. Point click, that's a double click. Okay. And then under search, we type in industrial. Okay, and the hypertext search takes over. Okay, let's see. 669 topics available. Let's scroll through some of this stuff. Acid rain, capitalism, imperialism, industrial revolution, mercantilism, military-industrial complex. Okay, nothing. All right, we'll try something else. Back to search. Click. And we'll narrow our parameters a bit. We'll type in industrial here. And then we'll move down one and type in music in the other one. All right. Error. No matches found. I thought this was supposed to be a state-of-the-art, totally up-to-date multimedia encyclopedia. Why isn't there an entry for industrial music? All right, we'll start from scratch.
In association with Fever and Resurrection Mondays. This is the ongoing history of new music on CFNY 102.1.
Hi there, I'm Alan Cross, and this is episode 4 in our series on the histories of the various subgenres of alternative music. The moment the original punk movement demonstrated that music didn't have to have any rules, things began to fragment, metamorphosize, and mutate. And the result is that today, music has become extremely stratified, with many different styles appealing to many different types of people. However, for convenience, it's still possible to group some of this music into certain loosely defined categories. Bands within these categories share similar approaches to music, often because they share common influences. We've already talked about grunge, the ska movement, and gothic music, and this time we're going to take a hard look at the history of the industrialized world.
Does it make you feel better? The pigs have won tonight. They can all sleep soundly, and everything is alright.
If we're going to begin with the very roots of industrial music, we have to go all the way back to 1928, when Leo Theremin and Maurice Martineau introduced the first electronic keyboards. This was the start of a revolution in musical instrument design because over the next 20 years, a bunch of other people came up with new types of keyboards that used electricity to make sound. There was the Electron, the Obukov, and the Dynaphone, just to name three. The place where this new electronic music caught on the most was in West Germany. By 1953, somebody by the name of Karl-Heinz Stockhausen had an electronic music studio near Cologne, and a little avant-garde scene began to develop around this studio. All right, we've got that happening, so let's skip ahead to 1965. This is when Dr. Robert Moog invented the Moog synthesizer. This is important because up until then, synthesizers were like the size of railway cars. They were these giant humming things that gave off a lot of heat, and they could only be programmed by making connections with hundreds of patch cords. Dr. Moog's synthesizer was still ungainly and ugly, but at least it was a little more manageable in terms of size, and it was a little easier to program. And this made it possible for more musicians to experiment with this new type of music. And once again, most of the experimentation took place in West Germany. In 1967, the all-electronic Tangerine Dream was formed. They were followed in 1968 by a really avant-garde group called Can, and other people began to explore the sonic possibilities of oscillators and electricity. The big break came in 1971 when Dr. Moog showed up again, this time with a new synthesizer design he called the Mini Moog. This one invention made much of today's music possible. It could do almost everything that one of those old boxcars could do, but it was a little bigger than a suitcase, making it extremely portable. But its most important asset, that it was much cheaper, making this new technology accessible to a new generation of musicians. Again, where do you think they went nuts for this stuff? West Germany? You're right. And there was a huge surge in interest in electronic music, all through Europe, but again, mostly in West Germany. And the group that emerged as the leader on the electronic frontier was Kraftwerk.
Rendezvous on Champs-Élysées, leave Paris in the morning with TEE. Trans-Europe Express. Trans-Europe Express. Trans-Europe Express. Trans-Europe Express. in a late night cafe. Straight connection, TEE. Trans Europe Express. Trans Europe Express. Trans Europe Express. Trans Europe Express. Station to station, back to Düsseldorf city. Meet Iggy Pop and David Bowie. Trans Europe Express. Trans Europe Express. Trans Europe Express. Trans Europe Express.
Kraftwerk's influence really began with a 1974 single called Autobahn, but by 1977 they had extended the edge of the envelope even further, and that song, Trans-Europe Express, ended up as being one of the most musically inspiring songs of the decade. But Kraftwerk wasn't the only group making waves with new kinds of music. For example, there was Lou Reed's 1975 album, Metal Machine Music. It sounded like this. That goes on for 4 sides of a double album. Nothing but noise and feedback. But some people got into it. Then we have to consider the impact of this song. Right, you're not hearing anything. Donna Summer in a program about industrial music. Yes, she does have a place in this history. Why? Because I Feel Love from 1977 was the first truly computerized, synthesized dance single. And while the disco element really didn't appeal to a lot of people, the sounds and the technology did. The song was a huge commercial hit, and it brought synthesizers to more people than ever before. Here is another single that had a huge impact. From 1978, this is The Normal with Warm Leatherette.
Warm leatherette. Warm leatherette. Warm leatherette. Warm leatherette. See the breaking glass in the underpass. See the breaking glass in the underpass. Warm leatherette. Warm leatherette. Warm leatherette. Warm leatherette. Hear the crushing steel, feel the steering wheel. Hear the crushing steel, feel the steering wheel. Warm leatherette. Warm leatherette. Warm leatherette. Warm leatherette. warm, leatherette, warm, leatherette, warm, leatherette, warm, leatherette, warm leatherette, melts on your burning flesh. You can see your reflection in the luminescent dash. Warm, leatherette, warm, leatherette, warm, leatherette, warm, leatherette. A tear of petrol is in your eye. The handbrake penetrates your thigh. Quick, let's make love before you die. On warm, leatherette. On warm, leatherette. Warm, leatherette. Warm, leatherette. Warm, leatherette. Warm, leatherette. Warm, leatherette. Join the car crash set.
By 1979, thanks to groups like Kraftwerk, The Normal, and even Donna Summer, we were starting to hear about cold wave, which was a dispassionate and more mechanical form of technopop. Cold wave was minor key stuff. It was harsh, it was robotic, sometimes rather militaristic, and it featured rather bleak lyrics. Most of it was based around synthesizers, but other post-punk groups were making contributions too. Take Johnny Lydon and Public Image Limited, for example. Johnny had always been a big fan of the German avant-garde group called Can, and once he was out of the Sex Pistols, he was free to indulge in his musical whims. PIL's philosophy seemed to be that while the apocalypse unfolded, you could still at least dance. Another extremely important group from the 70s was a band from Hull, England called Throbbing Gristle. Charming name, isn't it? In the beginning, Throbbing Gristle was half punk, half performance art group. But by the end of the 70s, they were heavily into a world of their own. Throbbing Gristle was fascinated by torture, cults, war, pornography, the occult, and I guess you could say societal taboos in general. The music was confrontational and sometimes, a lot of the time, unpleasant. Here, for example, is part of a 1980 track called Hamburger Lady.
He admits that she lived in a bird.
Other words, is the hamburger lady.
This music displayed a type of aggression that no one had really ever heard before. And many people, especially in light of the worldwide recession in the late 70s and early 80s, latched on to this new form of bleak expression. And another thing, Throbbing Gristle was probably the first group to use the term industrial to describe their music. They took their idea from a San Francisco artist by the name of Monty Kazaza. He coined the phrase, industrial music for industrial people. And it was really Throbbing Gristle that put sound to that statement. Now, they were very serious about the industrial image of their music. A lot of it sounded like it was recorded in a factory. Their record label was called Industrial, and their first formal record was entitled Second Annual Report. This industrial imagery and this industrial feel was also promoted by a number of other groups with names like SPK, Nurse with Wound, DAF, Controlled Bleeding, Wire. But the most serious of them all was a group from Berlin called Einstürzende Neubauten. In the beginning, Neubauten didn't even bother with instruments. These guys were not into chord changes. They didn't care about melody. They made their music with anvils, sledgehammers, breaking glass, lead pipes, sheet metal, and of course, power tools. Neubauten sounded like a car accident on the floor of a steel plant. And they were proud of it. Here's a sample. Neubauten was into using all sorts of sound for their compositions, no matter how strange. For example, Blixa, the the guy who screamed, once wired his chest with a microphone and had someone give him a bear hug until his ribs cracked. And then Neubauten used that sound in one of their compositions. Let's move back to England for a moment. Cabaret Voltaire had been experimenting with noise, tape loops, and samples since the mid-70s, and by 1981 they were into a hard electro-funk that was quite popular with the ultra-hip dance floor crowd. Their best-known song is probably a 1984 release called Sensoria, but let's try something a little earlier. This is Cabaret Voltaire with a 1982 single called Yashar.
70 billion people on Earth. Where are they hiding? The 70 billion people on Earth. Where are they hiding? The 70 billion people on Earth. Where are they hiding? The 70 billion people on Earth. Where are they hiding? The 70 billion people on Earth. Where are they hiding? The 70 billion people on Earth. Where are they hiding? The 70 billion people on Earth. Where are they hiding?
Rasta. Visst, ja, nyligen. 5 studios har start. But a new transmitted stuff coming to where we
Really hiding, really hiding, really hiding, really hiding, really hiding.
Like we've said before, the late 70s and early 80s was a time of tremendous upheaval in the world of music. The spark supplied by punk ignited an explosion of new ideas and approaches to music. And by 1982, some of the resulting shrapnel had coalesced into the industrial scene. But this industrial revolution was an ongoing thing. And when we come back, we'll look at what happened to the industrialized world in the 80s.
More of the ongoing history of new music on CFNY 102.1.
In the early 80s, industrial music was looked upon as kind of like the ugly cousin of technopop. And you know, that was actually a pretty good analogy. See, below the surface, industrial and technopop had a lot in common. There was a lot of crossover between the two scenes, and they tended to feed off each other for ideas. By 1983, Depeche Mode was caught right in the middle. They had this reputation of being a polite technopop band, but if you asked Martin Gore, who he listened to in his spare time, he would have listed names like Fad Gadget, a group that liked to use Black & Decker power tools in their music. Then there was Test Department, a group who liked to stage performances in places like quarries and car factories. And of course, he would have mentioned Einstürzende Neubauten. This aggressive approach to music really appealed to Martin, and as he began to assert more and more control over Depeche Mode, he began to incorporate some industrial elements into his music. In '83, Depeche Mode released an album with the industrial-sounding name Construction Time Again. And the music didn't have the same intensity or the same, let's call it noise level of Einstürzende Neubauten, but it shared a lot of the same headspace, especially when it came to percussion.
The handshake fills the contract. From the contract, there's no turning back. The turning point of a career is career being sincere. The holiday with fun packs. The contract still intact. Grabbing hands, grab all they can, all for themselves. After all, the grabbing hands, grab all they can, all for themselves. After all, it's a competitive world. Everything counts in large amounts. The clock on the wall tells the story of it all. Picture it now, see just how the lies and deceit gain a little power. Confidence taken in by sunset and a dream. Grabbing hands, grab all they can, all for themselves. After all, the grabbing hands, grab all they can, all for themselves. After all, it's a competitive world. Everything counts in large amounts. Everything counts in large amounts. The grabbing hands, grab all they can. Everything counts in large amounts. The grabbing hands, grab all they can. Everything counts in large amounts.
Construction Time Again helped fuse some of the elements of technopop and the early industrial sounds of the 80s. It was a synthesis of the raw sounds of Throbbing Gristle, Test Department, and Neubauten with melody and conventional song structure. And there were a lot of people ready to pick up on this, including a refugee from the Cuban Revolution named Alan. Alan was in this technopop band from Chicago that spent some time touring with both Depeche Mode and Culture Club. His record company really had high hopes for him. They thought Alan could be at least as big as Howard Jones. And for a while, Alan kind of played the corporate game. But somewhere along the line, something snapped. He was dropped by his record company, and Alan found himself out of work with no record deal. But instead of giving up, he decided to start his career from scratch. In 1984 and 85, Alan kind of dabbled in the goth scene. But in 1986, through some Depeche Mode connections, he hooked up with producer Adrian Sherwood. See, Adrian had created some pretty radical remixes for Depeche Mode, most notably for People Are People and Master and Servant. And Alan really dug the heavy percussion, the onslaught of electronic rhythm, and the use of distortion and tape loops. He just jumped at the chance to work with Adrian. The result was an album called Twitch. This is over-the-shoulder from Alan Jorgensen and Ministry.